Good morning, everyone. It's Katrina from the Alluring Bead Boutique. Come back in today. We're going to be working on this tutorial for this earring here. It's the next one in my little mini series I'm doing for great holiday gift projects you can make in under an hour. But before I get started on that, I just want to quickly touch base with you on a few things. The Skillshare class for the elegant wreaths is now up and available, and the pattern is also available on my website. And in my last video, I showed you guys a concept I had about taking those really long bead caps and spreading them out, and then using the hole punch to add a couple of extra holes, one here at the top for your ear finding. And I just want to show you how cute they came out. I really love this pair. I used two little rondelles on the sides and then a big 10mm bicone in the center. I thought those came out really cute. And then on the gold pair, I didn't punch the extra holes. I just used the one in the center here. And I put these really big 10mm fitted crystal rounds in this gorgeous deep red ruby color. And I thought that was just perfectly enough for that gold, and I love the way it came out. So let me set all that stuff aside. I do want to show you one other quick thing. Now, this is from Gina's Crystals Creations, or whatever her channel is, Gina's Gems Creations. She had put this video up on how to make this beautiful little wreath with super duos and rondelles and a few bicones and everything. And I just wanted to try it so bad, so I went ahead and I did. The only problem I ran into was my rondelles weren't exactly the right size. So I wound up having to use these little smaller red rondelles or ruby ones here. So instead of tying the top to the bottom with the bicones, I wound up tying it all together here with the super duo and some seed beads, and I had to wind up adding a little bit of extra seed beads there at the top and some extra 8/0s down here in the center, so it kind of punched up that presence here in the center. But I want to thank Gina for this design. I thought it was super elegant and super pretty, and it did not take that long to make. It took about an hour to make, so if there's another great project idea for you guys to head on over to her channel, and I'll throw a link for that up there in the information. Just hover over the eye and click, and it should drop down. If I don't have it there, it'll be in the description box below. Isn't that gorgeous? So I really love that. And then I just I used her bail idea also, and then I just ran her beautiful burgundy ribbon through there because my rondelles were kind of this deep burgundy-ish color, and it just is a super fantastic piece. All right, so let's talk about the earring we're going to make today. And for this project, I have got these little 3-hole bar links a long time ago. And when I first started thinking about making jewelry, one of my very first orders from Fire Mountain Gems, I ordered these little daisy spacers with the triple hole. And I have some gold ones and some silver ones. I've not really used them very much, so I still have quite a few of them. But if you can see here how I used 3 sets of these little daisy bar spacers in between these different types of beads. And so what I used for my red beads are these crimson beadlets. And if you don't have these, use bugle beads. There's a couple of little things we'll talk about here in a few minutes about it, but you can use red bugle beads just as easily with this design, no problem. So you'll need 9 of those, either bugles or these cute little beadlets. I got these at Hobby Lobby. They came in a little flat oval-shaped package. It looked like a little egg or something, but it was flat and about this thick at Hobby Lobby. But I think you can also get these in a tube over at AC Moore. They come in the same kind of tube that the Super Duos come in over at AC Moore. So you can get those relatively easily and very cheap. So you'll need 9 of those. You're going to need 6 of these 3-hole daisy spacers. Or any, any type of 3-hole link will work. And mine are the gold plated. You're going to need just a little tiny capful of 11OC beads. And I'm using that dark holiday green by Toho that I used on my last video. It's really pretty. And then I have these little drop beads, and I got these at AC Moore. They're 5 by 7 millimeters. And they are also in the ruby. And you'll need some ear wires. And you'll need 2 of your gold horseshoe protectors. You do not have to use those at the top, but I just like the way that it finished the earring off. And if you have them, you might want to use them for this project. If not, you can simply make a loop of beads up here. It's very, very, very easy. So give me just a moment and I'll come right back and we'll go ahead and get started on this project. So to get started, I have, I've got a lot more thread on my needle than I need, but a good wingspan is always a good idea to have on in case you need to, make some kind of adjustments or whatever. But the first thing you want to do is thread your needle, obviously, and I'm using 6-pound fire line. And I tried it with some thicker thread, the 8-pound or the .008 Wildfire, and it was too stiff. I like it a lot better with the 6-pound fire line. It has a little bit more flow to it, and it looks a lot better. But if you're going to use beadlets, or if you're using bugle beads, the one thing to make sure you have done here is to set your little beads side by side and make sure that each set of 3 is the same length from top hole to bottom hole. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem with a gap on one end between your 2 little bar spacers. So I went ahead and I sorted out and double checked my length of each set of these 3 beads. So now we're going to start. I've got my needle threaded. I'm going to go ahead and just put a little stop bead on my needle. Sorry if I didn't mention that at the beginning, but it's just helpful with this project to have a stop bead in place. So just get another bead that's not part of your project beads. Bring it down to the end of your thread. I dropped mine. Oh, silly. And then just pass through the bead one more time from bottom to top, so that when you pull the thread through, you have a thread bridge on the outside of that bead, and it'll stay in place on your thread. You don't need a huge tail, so just leave yourself enough to tie a knot with at the end. So now we're going to pick up our first little 3-hole daisy spacer. And it doesn't matter which side you pick it up on at the start, just make sure you pick it up on one of your side holes and not in the middle. Then I want you to pick up the first of your 3 evenly sized beadlets and then another daisy spacer. Drop it all down. And you'll see that it sits wobbly at first, but just you can hold it a little bit with your hand just like that. So now we're coming out of this hole on the left. I'm going to go ahead and come through the next hole of my daisy spacer in the opposite direction and pick up my next bugle or beadlet, and then make sure that when you come through your daisy spacer that you're going through from the same side in the middle, because it's a little bit wobbly. So once you get through that particular hole in the daisy spacer, that firms your work up quite a bit. So now it's a lot easier to work with. So I'm coming out of the bottom here in the middle hole of my spacer. So I'm just going to go up through the last empty hole of the spacer. And don't hook your tail thread. Then I'm going to pick up my last bead from that little set that were the same length. And I'm going to come through the next hole on my top daisy spacer. So we have that little set of beads already done. So now we're going to add some 11OC beads. So we'll just pick up 3, let them drop down, and then we're going to pick up another one of our daisy spacers. I'm coming out of this top hole on the right. I'm going to come down through the center hole with my needle and thread. I'm just going to snug things up so that everything sits nice and snug. Pick up 3 more of my 11-ohs. Now, for this step, I'm going to come through the center hole of my daisy spacer, but I'm also going to come through my beadlet and my daisy spacer on the end, just like that. And this is going to firm my work up for me. I'm just going to take my little stop bead and wiggle it over just a little bit. And I was coming out of the bottom of the center hole. So now I'm going to go up through this hole on the left, the beadlet, and the next daisy spacer in the middle here. And then I'm going to pull it a little bit. Don't pull really tight. Just get it to where it feels good in your hand. Then pick up your last 3 of your green seed beads and come out through the top hole on the left. And there's our next little row, or our next little section added. So now it's time to work with our next set of beadlets or bugles. Pick up 1 and a daisy spacer. Let them come down to your beadwork. I'm coming out of the top left of this daisy spacer. I need to come down through the center hole of that daisy spacer. So now I'm going to pick up the next beadlet or bugle in this set that I've already made sure they were all the same length. Sorry about that. Okay, so now I am coming down in the center of this daisy spacer. I've picked up my next bead, and when I come through this time, I'm going to come down through the center hole of my daisy spacer, the 3 seed beads, and the next daisy spacer, just like that. And snug my work up, but not really tight, because I want this thing to have some fluidity and motion. But I don't want to have any gaps between my beads and these spacers. So now I was coming down out of this center daisy spacer. I'm going to go up through the hole on the right, the 3 seed beads, and the next daisy spacer. And you can see how that brings all these beads into a nice alignment when you do that step. So now I need to pick up this last little bead, and I'm going to flip my work. So, oops, I'm going to lose it. So now I'm going to come up through this open hole on my daisy spacer, and I'm going to pull. And now, I just want to quickly show you guys how to determine that if everything is coming out right. You see how my red beads are lining up really nice, and there's no like big gaps or tilts to these daisy spacers because I took the time to make sure that my 3 beads were the same length. That's why it's an important step in this project. So now we have this as our beadwork. And it's time to go back to our green seed beads. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to pick up 3 of our green seed beads and our next bar spacer. Bring all that down. And because I flipped my work, I'm back on the left. So now I just need to go down through that center hole. And pick up 3 more of my 11-0 dark holiday beads. And now I'm going to come down through the center hole of my daisy spacer, as well as my beadlet in the middle and the center hole of my next daisy spacer. And pull. Now I'm coming out of this center spacer. I'm going to go up through the daisy spacer, the beadlet and the daisy spacer. And then I'm going to flip my work again because I'm left-handed. So now I just need to add these last 3 little 11-0 seed beads. I'm coming out of to the left, so just go up this hole here on the left. This is a really easy project. The trick to it is making sure your beads are the same length. All right, so now we have one more row of our beadlets to add, and I'm sure you guys have that all down to a science by now. So I will go ahead and add mine, and I'll come back and I'll show you the next step. So I added my last little section of my little red beadlets here. And before we move on, I want to quickly talk to you guys about the tension of this project. If you'll notice here on the earring I already have made, I have a little bit of fluidity in this piece so it can maneuver like that. That makes for a pretty sway to the overall outcome of the project. So you don't want to pull too tightly and have everything all bunched up. So if you notice here, if I hold my thumb up against where my thread is exiting, I have that nice fluidity in this piece, but I've still got to pass through these beads a few times. So keep that in mind, that you don't want to pull super tight on these next steps. So now I'm coming out of this daisy spacer here to my left. I'm going to pick up one of my 11-0 seed beads, and I'm going to go right back down through the same hole. And at the same time, I want to pass through all the beads on this left side of my project. And I want to make sure that I don't skip any beads so that I don't have any exposed thread when I get down to the other end. And to do that, you can simply look on this side and then flip it over and look on this side. If you can't get through all of them at one time, don't worry about it. Just take steps to get through. And then pull all the way down until this little green seed bead is sitting here on the top. And I like to take my needle and make it straighten it up just a little bit. Because now I'm going to do the same thing on this end. I'm going to pick up one of my green seed beads, and I'm going to go back through all these beads again. And I'm going to come out at the top just through the daisy spacer, not the green seed bead. All right. So now I want to get over to this next hole of my daisy spacer without going through this bead. Just come right down through the next hole of your daisy spacer and work your way down through all of your beads. And come out on the center hole on the other end. Make sure that you haven't skipped any beads or daisy spacer holes so you don't have exposed thread. And then just pull. And if you pull too tight, just give your work a little bit of a wiggle, and that'll loosen things up just a little bit. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my horseshoe protector here in the middle. So we're just going to pick up our horseshoe protector, and we're going to go up through one of the holes on the open end of the protector. Drag that down your beadwork. Now, let me get this stop bead out of the way a little bit. So now I'm going to come down through, back towards my beadwork, the other side of my horseshoe protector. And I'm going to pull my thread through. And as I pull, I'm going to make sure my thread slides into the little groove on the top of the wire guard. Just like that. So now I'm going to go back down into the center hole that I'm exiting, and I'm going to pass back through all the beads in this center line. I'm going to flip it over and make sure that I didn't miss anything. And I'm going to make sure that I don't have my tail thread hung up, which I think that I do. I'm going to get that tail thread out of the way. Now, so when I pull, my little wire guardian is sitting here in the center at the top. I'm going to turn mine that way just a little bit. Okay. So now we're going to add another little green seed bead. We're going to come back through this center hole. And we're going to go back through all the beads in that center line. And then pull our string through. And now you want to reinforce your horseshoe guardian, so you'll want to come back up through either side. It doesn't matter which side you go up through. Probably should have done that on my pass through, but I'm going to go up on the left through that wire guardian, and I'm going to come back down on the right, and I'm going to go ahead and pass through my daisy spacer at the same time. And then I'm just going to pull, and once again I'm going to make sure my thread slides into that groove, just like that. So now I'm coming out underneath this daisy spacer. I'm going to go right straight up through the hole on the right. And then I'm going to wiggle my work till I get my beads up, feeling the way that I want them to. I don't want them too tight. So this is probably the last chance you're going to have to manipulate the tension of this piece. So now I'm right here at my tail thread, and I'm just going to go ahead and tie a knot. So I'm going to do 2 overhand knots, but I'm not going to pull super tight. I'm just going to knot the thread. Actually, you know what? I didn't want to do that. But I'm just going to leave that one little overhand knot. What I really wanted to do was go ahead and add these beads. So pick up a green, and then pass right back down through this hole. And go through all the beads till you're coming out the other end. Make sure you haven't missed any. I'm going to straighten that bead up just a little bit. Like that. I'm going to pick up one more, and I'm going to go right back up. And then I'm going to tie my knots. So once you get at the top, make sure you're just coming through your daisy spacer, not the green bead. And now I'm going to tie my 2 overhand knots. And when I make my knots, I'm going to make sure that they fall under my green seed bead. And I'm not going to pull super tight, guys, because I don't pull super tight. You do not want to bunch up the beads on this side of your beadwork. Tie one more. So again, I'm making sure my knots fall under the green seed bead I added as an embellishment. I'm just going to take my needle. I'm going to turn that bead so that it looks this way. Now I'm going to come right back down through my beads on this side of my beadwork. Alright. And I don't want to go through my seed bead. I just want to come through all the beads in the daisy spacer. Now when I pull, I'm going to wiggle my tension just a little bit to make sure that it's not too super tight. And make sure that everything looks good up here at the top. Now I can end this thread. So take this last opportunity to manipulate your beads and get them looking the way that you like. Then we're going to add our little drop. So I'm getting ready to add my drop, and my thread is exiting from my daisy spacer. I'm going to take my needle and come through this green seed bead on the left. I'm going to come right back down through the same hole of my daisy spacer and just my daisy spacer like that. Now I'm going to come up through the center hole of my daisy spacer. And then I'm going to come through from left to right my little green seed bead in the center. Now you can use as many seed beads as you like for this part of your project. I used 3 here at the top and 1 below the drop. So just picking up 3 of my green seed beads. Then I'm going to pick up my drop from the top end, which is this narrower end up here. And then I'm going to pick up my last little green seed bead, so that when I drop them down, my drop is hanging in the correct position. So now I'm just going to skip over that last seed bead I added, and I'm going to come back through my drop plus all 3 of those green seed beads that I just picked up. And I'm going to pull my thread. And then I'm going to cinch it up to the beadwork like this. So my thread was exiting to the right-hand side of my green seed bead in the center here below the daisy spacer. So I want to come back through that green seed bead from left to right. Then I'm just going to wiggle my work and make sure that my drop hangs correctly from the beadwork, just like that. I'm going to come right back down through this daisy spacer, the same hole in the center, and I'm going to pull. And there I have my little earring made. See how simple that was and how cute it comes out? I wanted to do a couple of projects with, traditional Christmas colors of red, green, and gold, and that's how I came about coming up with this design. So now we need to end our thread. So I'm coming out of this seed bead, or this daisy spacer in the center, and I'm heading in this direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up through my this little beadlet in my next daisy spacer like that. And I think I'll go ahead and move up just a little bit further because I want to get close to the top of this beadwork. So I'm going to come on through the next 3 seed beads, the daisy spacer, the beadlet, the daisy spacer, 3 seed beads in my daisy spacer. And I'm going to pull my thread through nice and gently. And I want to tie some 1/2-inch knots, but it's going to be a lot easier if I do it on one of my outside rows. So I'm coming out of the top of this center daisy spacer. I'm just going to take my needle and go right down through the hole on the left of that same spacer and pull. So that now I'm sitting here coming out between a seed bead and that daisy spacer. So now I'm just going to take my needle, I'm going to come under my beadwork, just like that, and tie some 1/2-inch knots. We'll pull until I have a nice little loop. I'm going to take my needle and go right through that loop. And then when I start to pull it snug, I'm going to make sure that my threads fall between the seed bead and the daisy spacer like that. So that's where I want my knot. Then I'm going to move down through the next 3 seed beads and the next daisy spacer. Yeah, maybe I am. Right there. Okay. So I'm coming down through the 3 seed beads in the daisy spacer. Just like that. I'm going to do the same thing between this beadlet and the daisy spacer. I'm going to tie a half-hitch knot. Come under the thread to the center, pull your loop down, then go back through your loop, and as you tie your knot, make sure that it falls down between that daisy spacer and that bead. Move through some more beads, so come down through this red bead in your next daisy spacer. And when you feel like your work is secure enough, you can just simply end the thread. I'm going to cut as close to the daisy spacer as I can so I don't have any exposed thread. If you wind up with a little tiny piece of thread, just take your Bic lighter and you can melt it. So now all we need to do is get out some pliers like chain nose or flat nose. We're going to open up our earring finding just a little bit. Then we're going to connect to the ear wire using the wire guardian. We're going to close that loop up. Make sure it's good and secure. And I'll slide these little pups right back down into place. And there we have a nice little beautiful pair of long, dangly, elegant holiday earrings. And there you go. Those definitely can be made in under an hour. And I think they came out really pretty and they look really nice on. I've already tried one on and I really thought they came out really nice. Alright folks, so that's it for this quick and easy great holiday gift project. You can make in under an hour. I'm working on a wire wrapped project for pearls, and I'm going to try to get that video out this week. If I don't, it's going to be next week. This is Thanksgiving week, as we all know, and I have my craft show, which is called the Christmas Extravaganza event. It is in the Burnsville Town Center in Burnsville, North Carolina. I'm really excited, and I can't wait to get up there. I've got all kinds of goodies to take with me, and I hope I have a good sale. Help out by signing up for Skillshare and purchasing some patterns or jewelry from the AlluringBeadBoutique.com. That would be a great blessing for me. All right, folks, have a good day, and I'll see you soon.